Hey, this is Anney.
And Samantha.
And welcome to Stuff I Never Told You, a production of iHeartRadio.
And we decided, as this month has become kind of crunch time in our years, there's so many things extra happening, including, yes, jury duty. Yeah, that's the curse. And I got it. It got me. But with that, also, Dragon Con's coming up. So we got so many things. Happening. We decided we would add a Spoiled Saturday episode, but it fits pretty perfectly with our childhood memories theme that we've been doing this month. So for today's episode, we are featuring K-pop Demon Hunter, which is on Netflix, not a sponsor. If you want to take a moment and go watch it, you should before we talk about it. If you don't and you just want to hear what it's about, that's fine too. I would need that as well. But obviously, since it was just released, spoilers all around. So if you don't want to be, yes, so if you don't want to be spoiled, I would not listen to this. All right. So some background why this has made its mark in entertainment thus far. It is a Sony production, so the same people as Spider-Verse that Anney absolutely loves. This is the first movie written and directed by Korean-Canadian Maggie Kang with Chris Applehans. So they co-directed it. But this is a story that Maggie has been working on for quite some time. So she wanted to combine her heritage with the legends and history of South Korea. She is a seasoned storyteller working previously with DreamWorks on animations like Kung Fu Panda, Shrek, and many, many more. She told Geek Out this about K-pop Demon Hunter. I've always wanted to see an animated film set in Korean culture. As a Korean person who was born in Korea but grew up in North America, it's been surreal, but also incredible to see our culture just become so cool. It's cheesy, but I think it's true. Growing up, everyone knew Chinese and Japanese culture well, but Koreans were not even on the map. Now that we are, I feel so much pride, and I just wanted to express this pride through a film that celebrated our culture, all aspects of it. So my biggest inspiration for this film is my culture. So gotta love that. And yes, this animation has made Netflix history, or so they say. This is what they wrote on Twitter. It is the first Netflix film ever to reach a new viewing peak in its 5th week of release. Yeah. And this isn't the only record. So on Netflix in itself, they were talking about how they have hit the #1 spot later. So it kind of grew into hype, and it got bigger and bigger and bigger as more and more people watched it. Again, it isn't the only record they broke. In fact, this fake group, Huntrix, which is centered around, has actually become the highest charting K-pop girl group in the US Spotify list charts, beating the likes of Blackpink and others, along with the Saja Boys, again, a fake group who became the highest charting K-pop boy band in US Spotify history, beating even BTS. So apparently BTS only hit number 3 or I think 3 with Dynamite a few years ago. But yeah, it has outstripped that. Once again, a fake K-pop group has made that kind of history. They've been charting on things like the Billboard charts and so much more. So they're doing a thing. The significance of this movie has reignited the love and popularity of K-pop as it's it's still pretty popular, but it's slowly been waning as of late, I think. And yes, the cosplay is amazing. And my FYP for TikTok has been flooding of people doing the cosplay, and I love every bit of it because it looks so good. There is a scene, Anney, I know you know, in which they have one of the members of Huntrix dressing up as a sleeping bag for the Met Gala, and people are like, "Oh yeah, I finally found the perfect costume."
You gotta get that comfortable one.
I love it so much. So, but again, it also has, we also get a glimpse of some Korean lore and history, including the costuming, the legends of the Saja, which means lion. Also, there's Saja is kind of like a Grim Reaper, which I'm going to get into a little bit more. Women who are shamans and mundane who protect and heal the lands. Even the weapons that we see the Huntrix use are historic Korean warrior weapons, including the 4-tiger sword or the Saeungom, used by Rumi, the curved sword or the kokdu, used by Mira, and the spirit knife, the shinkal, which also carries the norige, which is connected to feminine spiritual power and traditions. They are the knotted with like strings and gems that you will often see on hymnbooks. I actually have one. I bought one, but they're very gorgeous, and it's kind of like a representation of the spiritual and femininity of it all. So it has a lot. They incorporate quite a bit of the lore. So let's get into the plot. The world is in need of protection and has been for all of eternity, and those who have been called are the hunters, typically a group of 3 women with beautiful voices that can call on the Hunmoon, which is not an actual historical lore. They made this up for specifically the movie, just so you know. And as a writer from KidNimDraws.com explains, it makes up of 2 words, they think, which is Yonghwan, which is the word for soul and spirit, and Moon, which is commonly the word for door. I think maybe it can also be used for gate. So spirits, door. This is a shield that covers and protects the earth from the entrances of demons who come to feed on the soul of humans. The leader of the world and the demons is the great and evil Gwima, and throughout the lifetime, different women have been called to protect and become hunters of the world. For this timeline, specifically, we have Huntrix, made up of 3 women. Rumi, a Nepo baby. She's a Nepo baby, but she is a part of the lineage. The daughter of a previous hunter and leader of the group, and she is the leader of Huntrix. Then we have Mira, an outcast and the lead dancer. She's kind of like dark and, emo-ish, got the attitude. And then we have Zoe, who is the adorable writer and rapper from Burbank, California, who's representing with them. They have been trained and led by previous hunter Celine, who was in the girl group with Rumi's mother, who has this motto: "We are hunters, voices strong, your faults and fears must never be seen." And they carry that to the core, to their detriment. Hint, hint. Huntrix has become a huge pop star success. They've been using their music to shield the world, and they're really good at it. However, we soon find out that Rumi has a secret. Her father was a demon, making her part demon with the patterns that plague the demons. So we will see that they all have little patterns that mark them as demons. Celine teaching Rumi that she must hide the patterns from the group and others, and that the only solution is to be rid of those patterns, which can only be done once the demons are vanquished by the golden Hunmoon, which is very hard to bring about, obviously. With the release of their newest song, Golden, the Hunmoon seems to actually start turning gold, which is great. And they push the hype of the song in time for their upcoming award show, Idol Awards, which is one of the best times to strengthen the Hunmoon. However, in the demon world, we see Gwima working to try to destroy the hunters as well as get all those souls. And here we're introduced to Jinu, who comes up with a brilliant plan, a demon boy band, the Saja Boys. And with their introduction, they are a hit, and the timing couldn't be worse, as Rumi's voice is only getting worse as she tries to hide her secret. Soon as the battles continue and the Saja Boys are gaining popularity, we see the enemy to lovers trope between Rumi and Jinu. Also the deepening mistrust between the girls, and an awesome diss track. I'm kidding. It's not awesome, but it's fun. It's a banger. During the award show, Rumi's secret is revealed. The Hunmoon seems to have been destroyed, and the Saja Boys open up the Hell Gates. But we have a heartwarming, vulnerable moment with Rumi and the girls, which go into an epic battle and a new song where Jinu sacrifices himself, realizing that he needs his soul back and wants to fix things. And the Hunmoon turns golden, and the demons are driven out, as well as Gwima. Ta-da! So that is essentially the plot for this movie. So there are obviously themes. Are you ready? First, before we get into that, Anney, what did you think about this movie?
I really enjoyed it. I thought it was beautifully animated, which is funny to me because I always know you don't like animation.
I know.
That was one of the things that stuck out to me. That it was beautifully animated, really interesting in the animation choices, and of course, a nice, good friendship story, which we love.
Yeah, I love a good friendship story. It's so good.
Yeah.
It's so good. All right, so one of the biggest themes, obviously, is the good versus evil trope. We have the Saja, or also known, I guess, as a Chosung Saja, which is a Grim Reaper. So it's a play on words, who are entering here because they realize if Song can build a shield, what if a song can also break the shield? And if you go in and listen to their last song, Be Your Idol, people have had mixed reactions in that. I think if I had tried to watch this as a kid, if my parents understood what this was, they wouldn't let me watch it because of the demon factor. Because they're like singing Latin, they're singing some chants, and it's pretty much a curse over the people.
Yeah. Yeah, and Guima is like a big devil mouth looking thing.
A deep voice.
Yeah, but I do think that's interesting because we've seen that before in a lot of, using the song to cast the spell.
Yes.
And I know we've been talking about fandom and K-pop recently, but I thought that sort of like switch from We Love Huntrix to We Love the Saja voice. Like people are literally like tearing off their shirts. Now I'm their fan now. I thought that was a very... I liked that take on like the fandom and also just intertwining that with lore of Korean history, but also this idea of like casting that spell.
Yes. And the fact that they earned the trust so easily by being good-looking boy band.
Yeah.
Right? And then also, if you notice, I liked how like at the beginning, the Saja boys were really perky, happy, respectful in pink. Like they were definitely playing into like, see, we're good people, which is kind of how you have to build up a lot of K-pop bands or groups, is to be like almost innocent and infantilizing to this point in order for that success. Like they literally have a character called Baby Saja, who throughout the time is just sucking on a bottle. You're like, okay, that's a little much, isn't it? It's a little much, but there you go. Yeah, it definitely works. But we do have that level of like who's good, who's bad, and the blurring of those lines. What is evil? Is everyone just inherently evil? Obviously, demons you would assume would be the evil ones. But here we have Jinwoo, who gives a backstory about the fact that they're all being punished because of whatever deeds that were. I was a little confused because some of these demons, I don't think, were they all humans at once upon a time that get taken by demons, or they just marked and born that way? Because we see like Rumi, her father. So what is the chicken or the egg situation here? But it does bring to the point of like, can demons change who are inherently evil? And so we should want them to die. But it's not so black and white, right?
Mm-hmm. Listen, I try not to do this all the time, but it reminds me of Star Wars.
Oh, okay.
Well, just the idea of like, there's a difference between, from Star Wars people out there, there's a difference between a Sith who chose that, and then someone who does evil because they were tortured and created to do that.
Right.
So I think that's like, I felt that there were similar shades. I would imagine there are similar shades of people who kind of chose this thing, people who through various reasons maybe fell into it or chose it, now regret it and want to change, and then people who were born with it but are fighting against it. Like there's those shades, they're gradations. Yes.
Which also brings me to the story, like, what is the backstory of Rumi's parents? I feel like this might be saved for later. I don't know. I will say like Maggie Kong no longer is with Sony, and some of that had to do with the issues of Sony. So we don't know, but we also know that corporations are greedy and we'll be like, we can do it without you. Look at Crazy Rich Asian, in which they took a very Asian story written by an Asian person and booted out the Asian screenwriter because they didn't want to pay her enough, but paid a lot of money for the white dude.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, not to bring in too many downers. I'm going to have a lot of downers. But all of that to say, what is the story? Well, how did a demon and a demon hunter get together in the first place to create this demon hunter mix, Rumi, who has a lot of feels and a lot of talent, but can't hear the voices?
Oh my goodness. I am so proud of you. You use the enemies to lover tag so easily. I feel like it would be something like that. I feel like it would be a similar.
To be fair, that is a K-drama tag as well.
Oh, I'm sure. It's been around forever. It's just like
in general. Yeah. But just in general. So, and then we have the kind of this shamans historically being women, or mudeng, who are been historically mostly women, not all women, but mostly women, are they're very effeminate in a lot of the representations. But also in Korean culture, you also know there are also good and bad shamans. as well. There's a lot of depth to that. So who is what?
Yeah.
Am I right? Also, wanted to point out the derpy tiger and the magpie, which have deep cultural ties, especially in Asian culture in itself. We know that the tiger in itself has a huge connotation. But in this narrative, the tiger representation is kind of that idea about corrupt authority figures. And well, that's why they're derpy and just like in it for one thing and very focused, or really derpy looking and knocking over pots constantly and having a battle with bins, apparently, containers. And the magpie is the distinguished, upright commoners. They're the common people who are coming in, making the city. They're the ones that know the right and wrong type of conversation. This is a part of a lot of the Korean folk paintings that we'll see, and they brought that in. And they did it to that level. Like they made sure to make them distinct. It wasn't just an animated, as you said the word Disney-fied in our feminist movie around the world type of look. It was specific to keep in tradition with Korean folklore and Asian folklore, and I really appreciated that. And people love those two things. They love the tiger more than the magpie, and I'm like, why do you keep leaving out the magpie? That's important. I've seen
I'm more for the magpie.
I mean, yes, you should be. Yes, you should be. Does it have too many eyes? Maybe. It's all-seeing. Anyway,
yeah.
Of course, another part of the themes is friendship. You absolutely see the beauty among the three girls who came in and was formed together, but really protect and love each other and are supposed to be understanding each other. Like that is a part of the growth, is knowing that even as close as they were, they still have all of their insecurities, which eat away at them, and none of them want to admit it. And that was part of because of Celine's bad take. Hide the fears and faults. Yeah, Celine, no. And they really had to undo that to realize this wasn't as healthy as they thought. And that meant that trusting each other was a big part of their friendship, and they had to really go through it.
Yeah. And having that, this does kind of remind me, wow, so many of these things are connecting to many recent episodes, because in the recent book club we did, we talked about that, of having the moment where you realize that there are secrets in the group, or you weren't as close as you thought, or maybe what I even realized, what I thought it was, and having that moment and then coming back together stronger for having that moment.
Right. Admitting, like the final song, when we're talking about everything is broken, we're liars, but that doesn't mean we can't come back and build better. As well as like Mira's line, she's like, I don't deserve family. I was like, oh, yeah, you do, honey. Let me picture it. You deserve family. Then we have the Jinu, Rumi. They never really kiss, but they do have that Korean drama touching of the hands. We kind of love a good drama moment. But they are slowly coming together, and she talks about wanting to save him as that, and he's like, you did? Will we see him back? I don't know. Will there be another one? I can't imagine Sony's going to let this one ride as successful, or Netflix as successful as it was. So, but who knows? Who knows? Jinu does not have any friends except for the magpie and the tiger, who also becomes Rumi's friend.
That's a little rough. You know?
That's hurtful.
I mean, you do want your friends to become friends, but there's also a part of you that's like, you're my friend. You're my only friend.
Don't be that way. Don't do it that way with me. Another part, again, is family. And we talk about the chosen family, obviously, just talking about it. But then we have Celine, who takes on the motherly figure, adopting Rumi because of the death of the mother, which we don't know how, like what childbirth, when she was born, she died. So what happened here? Was it the demon part that we don't know. We don't know that lore yet. But Celine doing what she thinks she's supposed to and protecting, being really Korean and trying to protect everybody's reputation and trying society, doing her duty versus not being very maternal to Rumi. So there's a lot of questions about that. And then also you have to ask, because I've seen a few articles pop up being like, Celine was a real villain. I was like, oh, damn. Oh, damn, okay. We jumped there real quick. Okay. And then Jinu, his selfish decision to leave his family behind so he didn't have to starve to death and die with them. That was rough.
That was a That was a rough revelation you got later in the movie, and I was like, oh, okay.
And when the woman says you've never done anything that wasn't for selfish reasons.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's been presented earlier as like he was forcefully taken away.
Yeah.
And then you get the truth of it, and it's like, oh no, okay.
She's like, Oppa, no. It's pretty heartbreaking. And then we have, in general, K-pop all throughout, obviously celebrating that culture, celebrating the music. I think it's interesting in this portrayal because it really does romanticize K-pop. And if you've heard our episodes previously, you know this is not the case. You know there's a lot of damage. We know there's a lot of death by suicide, eating disorders, psychological disorders, money paid back, surgery, all the things. There's a lot of things that happen, a lot of discourse, a lot of canceling, not canceling, whatever, in this industry. And it's pretty fast. Like people go in and there's such an inundation of K-pop groups that you don't see who is successful. Like people don't succeed when they think you should succeed. Like there are so many levels to that. A lot of them are put together. They are constructed and not organically brought together. As in they meet together and form a group. I mean, they do say that in the beginning of the movie that they were put together for Rumi. Like they're like, like this. But they just meshed well, which isn't always what happens. There's a conversation about what's happening in the Blackpink. Like they say that they're none of them are getting along. None of them want to be a part of this K-pop industry anymore, but they're obligated to do so because they've been as successful as they are. They have their own individual careers and are seemingly more invested in that. So there's a lot in that you see that you're like, ugh, like the whole mukbang at the beginning where they're all carbo loading. I'm like, that's not typical, to the point that you hear stories about other people feeding them rice, like sneaking in rice because they hadn't eaten that day. I will say though, and I've mentioned Mamamoo before, my partner has worked at production for shows in Atlanta. They came through, he worked the show, and there was a large request for bulldog ramen.
Yeah.
Because they were like, these Korean artists were like, no, that's what we need. So they had to make a special trip to H Mart to bring out all of these spicy ramen. So not too far off then, I guess, because they are a girl group that's pretty big in South Korea. And here, not as big as some others, but like it was fascinating. Like, okay, they really do ask for the ramen. I thought that was just a snack poppy food that became culturally popular in the US more so than no. They apparently was like, no, I need it. I miss it. So there's that. Again, I think I don't want to stray too far from the plot, but it is good to know that it does romanticize this industry a little, to the point that it's like, there are groups that do write their own songs, they create their own stuff, and they're amazing, and we want to give credit to that. That is cool as hell. But a lot of them, again, are manufactured. And a lot of them steal a lot of music. I think I've seen this specific movie has at least two of the bigger K-pop songwriters that are Western. I want to say from the US or Canada. And they've been based out of here for a long time. And they don't get paid as much as you would expect, as big as some of these songs are. The person who sang for Rumi, EJ, is a big K-pop industry singer and producer and writer, from what I understand. She is not in any group, but she is a part of SM Entertainment, which is one of the top 4 that we've talked about previously. And the others that sing on these songs are also either had been trainees, or writers and producers, so it seems. So it is an interesting mix. People are getting good. And EJ can hit those notes. Damn. Like chilling notes. Anyway, moving on. So obviously another big part of this movie, as Kang has actually said herself, is the culture of South Korea and the heritage, the mix between South Korean history that we were talking about, with all the weapons, with all the costumes, with all of the locations even, really mixes well with the modern day Hallyu in what we see in the dancing and the rapping, some of the ramen, once again, which was really funny to me, the costuming, the lights, the shows. There are idol shows that they happen every week that whoever tops the charts goes and performs and does it weekly, which I'm like, that used to be our MTV.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
They still do
Yeah.
that. I was like, oh, that's really interesting. But that does exist. I've seen the countdowns and different things that they do. And it's really interesting to see and how they celebrate it and who does what. And then, of course, this whole cultural thing with you and I talked about it. You had said that because I said that I think you're going to see a lot of these costumes at Dragon Con, which I'm very excited about and want to see. And you were talking about that people have already talked about being respectful in the costumes. What were you telling me exactly?
So I'm going to clarify. I heard this through a friend who's much more online than I am. She told me that there had already been an online conversation about, I think it was specifically the boy band and their costuming and being respectful about it and being aware of like the history behind it and just not being offensive.
Right.
That's what she said, I'm pretty sure.
From what I can gather, like things like norige, that is very specific culturally, but I don't like, unless you take it and make it like a panties or like chastity belt, like something really obscure. I don't see it being super offensive. Like even humbugs. Like I know a lot of the times when people go to South Korea, you can go to the stores and that's like period costumes, like any of those, and visit the old historical places and all of these things. And it's actually encouraged. It is something that is beautiful and we love to see. What we don't want to see, no one wants to see of any other culture is taking whatever it may be ceremonial or traditional, misconstruing it to be something you created with these ideals and then renaming things. That is like, even to the point that we see, I want to say Filipino level of ube, which has been huge and trending, and then people taking it being like, we need it a bit less sugary. I'm a white person who's going to do it this way. And you're like, what is happening? Or along the lines of like matcha, which is obviously very, very big. And then white people taking it, marketing, and be like, I went to Japan one time and I loved it. So I'm creating my own and this is mine and I'm an upcharge. Like stuff like that is absolutely disrespectful. Loving a culture, especially when it's as seemingly ignored as South Korean culture and oftentimes demeaned or sidelined for like Chinese culture, which by the way, Chinese is a huge country. So having one ideal of even that culture is almost offensive and ignorant in itself. So like so many things to that. But with the Saja boys, I know they are Grim Reapers. I don't know if it's ceremonial. Don't know if it's a funeral wear. That might be the problem. Of course, if you're wearing something that is supposed to be for funerals and you're partying in it, that's disrespectful because like death rituals and like ancestry rituals, very, very sacred. Very, very much so. So stuff like that, yes, I think you need to understand what these are. Again, the Saja boys are a play on the Grim Reapers. So look into that.
Yeah.
We would look into that. But I don't think in general, like himbucks and the hats in general are not necessarily, or the gut are not necessarily disrespectful. If you're doing something with it, if you're painting obscene things on it, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't pretend. I would tell you not to pretend to be a shaman in any way. Koreans can be real superstitious on that. And I am too. Not gonna lie, I'm a little superstitious. Don't want to curse myself. In general, I think things like that have to be looked at as well. Again, like there's so much to this. And I say this as not an expert, as someone who has ignored this culture for so long, who's been afraid of this culture, who felt like if I even pretended I liked, or who even like showed interest, that I was pretending. There's so much to this. And I want to note, like, watching this movie, getting ready to talk about this, talking about why I love it as much as I do, because this has become something that I've grown to love. Like I've watched this too many times. And I was really, really hesitant in even starting to watch this because it felt kitschy. Also, there's still that childhood part of me that really wants to be white because I was brought into white culture, was told white is the savior of all and that this is the fixer and the best thing to be is white. And even the Korean culture kind of holds to that standard as well. And so part of me feeling like seeing this, celebrating a culture seemed foreign and almost the anti of who I was growing up, I guess. And so to find something like this, culturally impacting, celebrating, loving, not any caricaturish characters. Like it is, but it isn't. It isn't making fun of a culture. It isn't making fun of an accent. It isn't making fun of a saying. It isn't making fun of a food. It is like all these things which I see way too often, that happens way too often, that has to be addressed way too often, and being told that I'm being too sensitive. And then if I can't joke like that, then what am I doing with life? Why am I being so sensitive? Being constantly being misconstrued as Chinese. And now for the first time, everybody's saying, are you Korean? Which is also a fear of mine that I'm like, no, but we don't want to make that a better thing either, or the more recognizable thing either. We need to understand it's a vast area. And that to be able to acknowledge all of the different areas and appreciate all of the different areas is something that needs to happen. But as someone who has ignored and run from it for so long, has feared it, has not felt good enough for it, has not understood it, has felt like acknowledging this culture meant I was disrespecting the people who who took me in, I'm putting that in quotes. So many of that conversation pops too. And I'm wishing, like, had I had something like this that celebrated Korean culture like this, would I have been less ashamed or less likely to turn away from it, or been less hesitant in learning more about it? Because I feel like I'm so far behind in learning something that it should be so important to me. Like having a part of that as my identity feels so, again, too late. And I've kind of had that conversation about being too old for some of these things, whether it's connecting with family, connecting with culture, connecting with ideas. There's a lot to this. And also having that guilt and knowing that some of Korean culture, a lot of K-pop culture perpetuates racist ideals and stereotypes within things that are being oppressed here in the US. There's like this bigger picture of this. I have the celebration. I have the desire. I'm so excited to hear this music and song and hear Korean and see the hanboks and see the folklore. But at the same time, I feel like I am overwhelmed with guilt and ignorance when in trying to love and like these things. There's so much to this in that level, but also the bigger part of me, which begged for representation and so clung to things like Brandy, who I love, and I'm so glad I loved her music, but because she was not white and she was cast into love to have a romance with an Asian man. Like that was enough for me to love things like Mulan and have to dress up like that, because that was the only Asian-ish representation that I saw as a good thing and as a strong thing, instead of being a caricature like Pretty in Pink or Breakfast at Tiffany's, which mock Asian people in general or fetishizes Asian people in general. And so seeing that and wishing that I had such a representation, and what would that have made for me, embracing my, being so young, like being that person and being loving the food that I love, that brings so much memories, triggers as well. There is so much in this context that seeing them be the center of the story is phenomenal. Again, when we talked about Just As Long As We're Together, my desperation to see any lightness of me was so strong, because I always felt like a side character, the sidekick, and not wanting to be first time centered in something is beautiful. And again, back to the other happy hour episode where I was like, but it feels like it's too late. I'm too old for this point of being. But there's so many things that pop through my head as I'm watching this. Like, it actually has me tearing up when I watch this cartoon animation, because there is something that you can be proud of. Like my skin tone, my eye shape, my speech even isn't foreign, isn't weird, isn't unusual. As where in, North Georgia mountains, University of Georgia, unless you're a part of that clique, and there's a clique when it comes to the Asian community, you are the odd one. You are the one that's singled out when growing up being stared at in an all-white town because I'm this Asian person walking in and people are like, who is that? What is that? And then my mom trying to be cute and being like, no, because you're so cute. And I'm like, that's not why. Let's talk about the elephant in the room here. Like, thank you and all, but that's a lie. And we need to talk about this. So there's so many levels in this movie that hit me as an adult Korean woman that felt embraced, but also conflicted. This has made an impact. I will forever think about this as something, especially because it balanced Western Koreans with South Koreans, Eastern-born, Eastern Asian people who are like, wow, okay, this feels familiar, as opposed to watching K-dramas where it feels still foreign or a dream state. Like things look familiar, but as if I dreamt them, versus this being like, okay, it is today and now that I'm more familiar with a mix of Western depiction, I guess is the best way to say it, without being whitewashed, which is the other part of that. And with that, I think when we talk about these types of shows, I also have this fear that this could be a whitewashing of Asian characters when you have voices that's supposed to be Asian and it's not Asian. That is the biggest disappointment that I could ever think of. I'm like, why would they do this? When you had characters that's supposed to be Asian, they're like, we're going to make them white. They have a little bit of slant in their eyes. They could possibly be mixed. Scarlett Johansson is not Asian. I will fight you to the day we die. But that level, like, of that whitewashing, there's this conversation of the newest Broadway musical, in which it was written for in Korean standard and has half white people, which is what it is. But then they're talking about it being cast fully white now, and the argument, which I've had argued to me about how, well, Koreans take white shows and make it Korean. Why can't we do that here? But Korean Americans exist. This is not, there's no, it's like the differentiation is huge. And to be fair, I also think it's funny when I see K-dramas like depicting white people as all Americans, and you can definitely tell their accent is like Russian or German. You're like, that they are absolutely not from the US, but good try. I like that. There are moments like that when you have like an understanding, like you don't understand what it means to have representation because you've always had it. You never had to think about whether or not it wouldn't be. It wouldn't be there. And then with that, all by the way, they did have, I love that they mixed the casts. So it was both Korean Americans, Western Korean people who may have been from Canada, whatever, whatnot, to also having Korean actors, South Korean actors. So we had Arden Cho, she was done dirty on a couple of CW shows, and I'm glad to see her make it into this. We have Daniel Dae Kim, who is an icon and heartthrob, and Hello, How Are You? My name's Samantha, come see me, who got to be a small minor role. And then we have Kim Jong. We all know who he is. He is a comedian who is the doctor he exists. Then we have the Korean stars, Lee Byung-hun, who is one of the ones I was talking about. He has a sketchy past. Really sad because he is huge in both Squid Games and this. But they are very easily dismissive of sexual harassment allegations and charges. We have An Hyo-sop, which I've talked about him before because he was one of my first interactions with K-drama. They're like, I like this. Oh, who is this guy? Who was Canadian, actually. He was born in Canada, but has been in South Korea and has made a huge name for himself as a South Korean K-drama actor. So he has a bit of an accent, which I think is kind of funny to me to see as Canadian, but because I guess he's been in South Korea so long that it sounds like English is a second language, which I don't believe it is. But he, who plays Jinwoo, was a trainee and then decided to act and model. They didn't use his voice though for most of the songs. It was a different Andrew Choi, I believe is his name, is the one who ends up singing for him, and he was a writer and trainee as well. But having him in there, in one of my favorite K-dramas, Business Proposal. I've talked about this one before, and they actually have that little theme song pop in. This is an Easter egg when he walks in. When you introduce to Gino as human form, is like that, and I'm like, I love a good throw in little secrets that we know. One of them. But yeah, so I loved everything about that. But having actual celebrities or stars or actors who are in that world, who have been dismissed for so long, to be able to be a part of that success, I love every bit of that. And that's the representation that we've been begging for, that I've been begging for, that people who want to see more of their ethnicity, their community being represented, that's what we're begging for. The more of that, please. Doesn't take much, and it's a huge success. Also, we had a small moment with Celine singing. So the actress who played that did not sing. It was Lea Salonga, the Filipina icon and queen of Broadway that I've spoken previously when we talked about PBS and Les Mis. And again, me clinging to any type of representation as a child, she had a little minor role. And I hope if they do have a backstory that we get to have a longer edition of her musical talents, because we need those. We need that in our lives. So, yeah. Thank you for going on this journey with me. There's so much to this. I want to talk more about this. I want to see more things like this. I hope that there is a sequel that Kang is a part of. And if any, because I feel like we've talked about how we think that some of the studios may be listening to us and taking our ideas or suggestions. If y'all are listening and Kang is not on there, we're going to be upset.
Yes.
Okay.
We'll talk about it.
Correct.
That's right. You watch out, you big studio. Yes. I'm sure we'll come back and talk about this more. I will definitely report after Dragon Con what I see.
I'm going to need some pictures.
I'll try to do better. I'm not great at taking pictures, but I will do if I see them, I'll think of you and I'll be like, okay. But I know that people are loving this, and I'm sure many of you have plenty of thoughts about it. So please write in if you would like to. We would love to hear from you. You can email us at hello@stuffmonevertoldyou.com. You can find us on Blue Sky, Mobster Podcast, or on Instagram and TikTok at Stuff I'll Never Told You. We're also on YouTube, and we have a book you can get wherever you get your books. Thanks as always to our super producer Christina, our executive producer Maya, and our contributor Joey.
Thank you.
And thanks to you for listening. Stuff I Never Told You is production by iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, you can check out the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to your favorite shows.